So you've seen it on the news headline recently. Are we heading towards a crash? Are we in a bubble? Where's the housing market going? Those negative headlines are very anxiety and fear provoking. And they are doing one thing and one thing only, is to create fear, is to create panic. So before we go into the full-on panic mode, I would encourage you to look at the facts. Today we're going to look at some facts. I am going to give Dave Ramsey credit for some of the material I'm going to use based on his talk. If you want to hear more about how he's addressing this topic, click the link below to hear his full presentation on whether or not we're heading towards a crash in the housing sector. So let's talk about the supply and demand. The last recession and last big correction we experienced in the housing market was during 2007, 2008, and which we know were caused by irresponsible lending practices. Subprime mortgage means that anybody and everybody is getting a loan. Banks were not asking for documentations. Banks were not validating or verifying income. So there's a lot of what we call those subprime mortgage products being sold in Wall Street and then caused a big widespread collapse in the marketplace. That practice has gone obsolete. Banks have corrected itself. There's a lot more checks and balance to make sure a borrower is legitimately qualified. They ask for last 2 years of tax return. They ask for FICO score. They verify your income. They make sure you come in with a 20% down payment. So the subprime crisis that caused the last housing crash and the last bubble, the cost of it has been corrected. So we're not experiencing that right now and won't be for a while. What we are experiencing is a huge price appreciation over the last 2 years. During the pandemic years, the mortgage interest rate was at a historically low point. People realized that, it's important to have their yard. People are moving out to the suburb, buying their very first home. So the supply and the demand was so imbalanced, driven by low interest rates. So there's a lot of buying activities. Last 2 years, we see a home increase by somewhere between 30 to 40% in some markets. So that's a huge price spike. Right now, we're going through market correction. It's not a bubble. It's not a crash. It's a market correction. It's how the Federal Reserve Bank is trying to normalize the supply and demand by adjusting the mortgage interest rates. So let's talk about the mortgage interest rates. When we look at where we are historically, our mortgage interest rate, currently 30-year mortgage interest rate, is at 5.5%. Right now we're talking about July of 2022. Compared to the rates decades before, we're still at the low point. Yes, we're no longer at that 3% bargain mortgage rates, but 5.5% compared to just a couple of decades ago is still at a low point. So that a couple of points mortgage interest adjustment has slowed down the market, has cooled off the market. It's not a historical huge spike compared to some of the rates that we have experienced 20, 30, 40 years ago, according to this chart. Let's also talk a little bit about the supply and demand. There was an overdevelopment back in 2006, 2007. New constructions were happening at a huge rate at that time. And let's look at this slide. We can see that in 2007, housing inventory was at 3.7 million. Right now, in 2022, we are at less than 1 million in terms of new home inventory. So supply and demand, again, will dictate where the pricing is going. We're seeing almost less than a third of the new construction inventory as we witnessed back in 2007. And that shows that we are at a very different economic environment compared to 2007 timeframe. And also, what caused the last crash was, a foreclosure. More and more foreclosure are coming on the market. People realizing that their home worth a lot less than what they bought it for. So they walk away from their home. Homes went into foreclosure. In 2007 to 2019, as we see in this chart over here, there was nationwide, close to 600,000 homes were in foreclosure. Right now, we are at less than 100,000 foreclosure nationwide. So also not the same environment. This is another reason why we need to pay attention to the facts, not hearsay or not those speculative, anxiety-driven headlines. So another important factor is to look at the demand. So the first-time home buyers are usually individuals in their 30s, early 30s, mid-30s. They're entering the housing market. They have been in their job 2-3 years. They have had a down payment save up. They have good income. They're looking to purchase their first real asset, their first home. So the number of people in their 30s around in the 2008 was 55 million. We call that segment of people Generation X. Now, millennials are at 66 million. There's 11 million more new buyers now than 2008. So again, the demand is very strong and the supply of homes are not as strong as before. So not the same demand, not the same supply as compared to the last crash. So I just want to impress upon you that this is nowhere near the environment where we experienced in 2007, 2008. We're at a very different environment. Yes, we're coming out of the pandemic. Inflation is at all-time high, but unemployment rate is also at all-time low right now. We are at 3.8% unemployment nationwide. So that means that people are having jobs, people are gainfully employed. There's actually a shortage of labor in many sectors. Many sectors are still hiring. So if people are having jobs, they have income to support their lifestyles, and home is one of the basic needs of human beings. And if they can afford it, buying a home will be the next big decision people make. So I hope that helps, and I hope that demystify those terrifying headlines. If you want to learn more about the overall supply and demand of our current housing market, I encourage you to check out Dave Ramsey's video right down below. He goes into more of the numbers and the data of our current housing market. He's predicting that we're going to see an increase in home value by 8% nationwide. Here in the Bay Area, it's a little different story, but I am not seeing home prices are going spiraling down. We are experiencing a minor shift here in our Bay Area market, and that's only because that homes has appreciated so fast and so much, and it's keeping a lot of people from buying a home. Right now, home buyers have options, they have time, and they don't have to compete with significantly price over asking. So that's actually what the normal market feels like. And the supply and demand is getting a little bit more normalized nationwide, especially here in the Bay Area. So if you're looking to buy, this is a good time to really consider that option. If you need someone to talk about your options, your affordability, give me a call.